Hi there, and welcome to the Pip and Pan podcast. My name is Megan Nodecker. I am a knitwear designer and instructor from Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And today I'm going to talk to you all about this sweater. Basically, I'm going to teach you how you can modify any sweater pattern to look like this. This is a pattern that I knit last year. When I was knitting it, I had full intentions of making it into a pattern. I haven't graded it. I have the instructions written down. I am 3/4 of the way there. I took pictures of it that I really love. But earlier this year, I decided that I was going to take a little design hiatus. And so this one kind of fell by the wayside. And I have been struggling with whether or not I wanted to finish this one and complete it and publish it or not. Now, after I had knit this, I had been to a few retreats and I had been teaching at a couple places, and I like to bring lots of samples with me. I teach a lot about sweaters and fit and all sorts of things. So I try and depending on where I'm teaching, I try and pack in as many samples as I possibly can. This was one of them. And by far, this was the sweater that everybody wanted to knit. And unfortunately, I did not have a pattern for them. So, they couldn't. So what I've decided to do instead of creating this pattern, I wanted to create this video. I may still make this pattern in the future when I get back into designing, but in the meantime, I wanted to make this video for you so that you can recreate this sweater on your own. What we're going to do today is I'm going to talk to you about how you can take any top-down raglan sweater pattern and what modifications you can do to make it look like this one. So let's get started. So let's talk about the basics of this sweater first. So here it is. I have the real thing right here. This is a top-down raglan. So you cast on at the top, do some rows back and forth to create the neckline, join everything in the round, and then work the rest from the top down. I knit mine in a DK weight yarn. This is All Points North Juniper DK in the colorway Chai Latte. I got it last year, I think, at Fibers West out in Cloverdale, and it's very soft, super next to skin. I wear this sweater all the time. The yarn is a big part of it. I knit this on US 6 needles for the body and then a US 4 for all the hems and ribbing. So the first thing that you're going to need to do when you think about modifications and when you think about trying to recreate something like this is you need a base pattern. Unless you want to completely self-draft something, but it's easier to have a starting off point. And so I do recommend finding a base pattern that you can work from that's a top-down raglan in whatever yarn weight you want. I've chosen DK, but you can do this in fingering or worsted or whatever you want. Plain stockinette stitch, maybe something without too many details, because we're going to be adding those ourselves. So a couple of suggestions I have: Il Grande Favorite by Isabel Kramer, Tall Shadows by me, Megan Nodecker. This one is actually knit in reverse stockinette, but it's knit inside out. So you can do reverse stockinette or stockinette on that one. We have the Flax DK by Tin Can Knits. The only thing about that one is I know it doesn't have the neckline shaping, so the neckline might not be exactly the same. We have the Monday Sweater by Petite Knits and Cozy Classic Raglan by Jessie Made Designs. There's probably hundreds more basic top-down raglan patterns, but those are just a few. I did a quick search on Ravelry. Those are just a few of my suggestions, and I'll make sure to put the link down below. Now, which one do you pick? So my first suggestion is to look at the schematics. So go into each of these patterns and look in the schematics and see which one has a size that's going to fit you the best. One of the things that's really important to me is the shape of the neckline, so that's something that I would look for. I know some people they really like their sleeves to be a certain way in relation to their body. So if that's a consideration for you, make sure you're taking a look at the bust measurements and the sleeve circumferences to make sure that they're something that you like. So yeah, take a look at the schematics and see which one you like best. Sleeve shapes also, if you like a tighter fitting sleeve, you might like one over the other. Or if you want something fun like a balloon sleeve, you know, maybe find a pattern that has that, and then you don't have to do those calculations yourself. You could also, instead of choosing one based on the finished measurements or the schematics, what you could do is make a swatch. So you could swatch with your yarn and your needles, block it, make sure it's nice and big so it's pretty accurate, let it relax, and see which pattern that swatch will fit. So you can kind of do it, instead of trying to make your swatch match the pattern, you can make your swatch first and then find the pattern that matches that. And if you do use Ravelry, this is actually something you can do on Ravelry. You can do advanced search, look for the yarn weight that don't put in the yarn weight that you're using. What you want to do is do an advanced search for top-down raglans, and then you can actually put in the gauge that you got, and it will populate a list of patterns that have that gauge. So that's pretty neat. So once you have your base pattern, I'm going to talk to you about all the changes that you can make to make it look like this. Now, you don't have to make, this is knitting. One of the things I find with some knitters is it's all or nothing. It's follow the pattern or don't. It's make all of these modifications or don't. You can pick and choose what you want to do. So you can pick and choose from any of the things that I'm going to talk about, and you can do any of them. A couple of the things that I've done is I did broken rib on the body sides of the raglan. So if you see the raglan line here, this is why I talk about the raglan line, where it goes straight down from the neckline to the armpit. On the body side and on the back, so the front and back have this, I did this broken rib detail. How I kind of did that is it's a little easier to show on the back because it's straight, or it doesn't have any shaping, sorry, it's not straight. But essentially what I did is when I placed my markers for the raglans, I placed a second marker. I think it was about 10 stitches, 10 stitches in as well. And so every time I would come to that marker, I would do the broken rib, and I would also move that marker, well, first I would move the marker over one so that I had 10 stitches, and then I did the broken rib pattern, and then I would carry on, and then the next round, if there was an increase, then I would move the stitch marker over one. If there wasn't, I would leave it where it is. Basically, I was always ensuring that I had 10 stitches in between these two markers. So this one has to move at some point. So on every increase round, you do have to move it, and then just work your stitch pattern in here. Now for a broken rib, it's quite a simple stitch pattern. Basically, you are knitting one round, and then the next round you're doing knit 2, purl 2, rib. So it's a knit 2, or it's a 2x2 broken rib. So you knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and for one round, and then knit the next round. Yeah, so you're just moving that over every time you do an increase round, and that's all the way down. And I just did it until, I did it to the very end, and then I kind of kept going. You can resolve this however you want, but under the armpit, you can kind of see I kept going down a little bit just until because I didn't want it to end straight like this, right at the underarm, because then I would have it would be cut off right here. So I just wanted to extend that all the way down until it finished itself. I could have, when I was making this sweater, of course, I had the intention of making a pattern, and so I didn't really want to pull that all the way in. I think if I was making this just for me and I wasn't thinking about how hard this was going to be to write up, I probably would have pulled these together even and made it a point, because I just like little details like that. But yeah, so that is how you would add the detail along the raglan line. The other thing that I changed, or that if I was working from a basic pattern that I did, is I did a 1x1 rolled hem on the line as well as the cuffs. And so to accomplish this, you just pick up whatever stitches around the neckline. Some patterns have you work the neckline first and then kind of go into the raglan. So however they get you to do it, you just do double length. So I wanted a 1-inch rolled hem. So I worked 2 inches of 1x1 ribbing and then folded it over and did a whip stitch it down. So I think that added, I feel like it's really, really polished with a 1x1 rib hem. And it's something that I do like adding to lots of different sweaters. You can literally add this to whatever sweater you want. The other thing I did on the hem, I did not do a rolled hem, but I actually mirrored this broken rib and I mirrored it down on the hem, and I did a nice big 2-inch hem on the bottom. I did go down in needle size, but you'll notice that this doesn't pull in at all. And because of another modification I made, I didn't want this to pull in at all. I wanted it to just go straight down. I did go down a needle size because even the purl stitches are going to be a little bit wider, or they're not going to be wider, but the switch generally makes your fabric a little bit wider. So I did go down a needle size, but it doesn't have that same thing as ribbing does because of that line of knit stitches in between each knit 2 purl 2 row. I really like this. This was my first time doing a broken rib hem like this, and I will probably add it to other things because I really loved, sometimes I want my sweaters to pull in at the hem. Sometimes that's a look that you do want. I didn't want that for this, so that was my solution, and I think it worked really well. All right, now let's get into some of the more nitty-gritty stuff. Those are some of the easy changes you can make. You can literally do this to any sweater that you want. These changes you can do to any sweater as well, but they're a little bit more involved. So two of the things that I did is I added some A-line shaping to the body. So instead of having my body go straight like this, like most sweaters are written, mine actually comes out at the hem a little bit, just so I have a little bit more room on the hips. Honestly, it's not, sometimes when you think of an A-line hem, you think like flowy and out and, very noticeable. I just did a very, very slight one. And when I'm wearing it, you can't even really tell that much. For myself, what I did is I measured my bust, and I made the sweater with, we'll say, I can't really remember the exact measurements of this sweater, but I think it had about 4 inches of positive ease. So we'll say 4 inches. So I measured my bust, added 4 inches, and then I measured my hips, which are a little bit bigger than my bust, and added 4 inches. So it actually just has the same amount of ease between the two. That's how I kind of came up with. The other thing that I did is I added a high-low hem. So I actually added short rows to the bottom of the body right before this broken rib hem. And so the back, if I hold it up nice and flat, you can see that the back is a couple inches shorter, or sorry, a couple inches longer than the front. So how do we do those things? So let's talk about the A-line shaping first. So I kind of told you how you can figure out how big you want your hip measurement to be. Just add in as much ease as you'd like. Then what you're going to need to do is find out how many stitches per inch you have at your gauge. So say you have 20 stitches over 4 inches. That's your gauge. We're going to divide that by 4, which is 5. So you have 5 stitches per inch. So every inch of fabric has 5 stitches. Okay. Then we're going to multiply that, what you want your finished hem measurement to be. So say I want my finished hem, I want it to be 50 inches. I'm going to multiply that by 5. That's going to give us 250. So I know now that at that hem, at the bottom of my sweater, I want 250 stitches. So now we're going to take a look at our bust stitches. So if I'm making my sweater and the stitches at my bust right after I separate for the sleeves, I see that it's 210 stitches. So we're going to figure out how to go from 210 stitches to 250 stitches and do that kind of evenly. So first thing we're going to do is minus our bust stitches from our hem to see how many stitches we need to increase total. So 250 minus 210 is 40. So we know that we need to increase 40 stitches total to get to that number. Generally, when we do increases on the body, we're increasing 4 stitches every time we do an increase round. 2 at the front and 2 at the back, kind of on the sides. And if I can show you here, on the side of this sweater, you can see, hopefully, maybe you can see. Yeah, there you go. So you can see my increase stitches every bit here. I have 2 on this side, 2 on this side, and then 2 on the other side as well. So every time I do an increase round, I'm increasing 4 stitches. So we're going to take that 40 stitches. We know we need to increase 40 stitches. We're going to decrease it by 4 to find out how many increase rows or rounds we actually need. So 40 divided by 4 is 10. So in total, we're going to need 10 increase rounds. Okay. Quick way to determine, there's a more accurate way to determine this, but I'm going to show you the quick way to determine this. So the quick way to figure out where those increases need to be placed is to actually grab a measuring tape, and I thought I grabbed one. Second. Right, so we're going to grab our measuring tape, and we're actually just going to measure how long our body is going to be from our underarms. So I'm going to stand up to show you. So say my underarm, the underarm of my sweater is going to be here, and I want it to be this long. So I can see that that is, we'll say 12 inches from your underarm to how long you want your sweater to be. We're going to take that number and we're going to minus our hem because we're not going to be doing any increases in our hem. So I know I want a nice long hem, about 2 inches. So I'm going to take 2 inches off of that and get to 10. Now I also want to knit maybe about an inch straight after I separate for the sleeves. I don't want to do an increase round right away, so I am going to knit maybe an inch straight. So I'm going to take another inch off of that. So we have 9 inches in length where we're going to do those 10 increase rounds. We're going to do 9 divided by 10, and that gives us 0.9. So every 1/9 of an inch, we'll do every 7/8 of an inch because that seems easier. So every 7/8 of an inch approximately, we're going to do an increase round. Generally, after the first one, you'll know that that might mean for you, okay, I need to knit 4 rounds and then do an increase round. So that's kind of the quick way you can figure out your increase rounds. So every 1/9 of an inch, you're going to do an increase round. You're going to do that 10 times. Your bust, which has 210 stitches, now has 250 at the hem, and so it has that nice little bit of A-line shaping. Okay, and then the last thing is that I did is I did that high-low hem in the back. So I wanted to add a little bit of fabric to the back, just for something different. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, again, we want to figure out how many rows per inch we have. So we're going to take our row gauge and divide that by 4. Let's say we have 24 rows over 4 inches. 24 divided by 4 is 6 rows per inch. So every inch of fabric height-wise is 6 rows. Then we're going to decide how tall we want those short rows to be. So how much longer do we want that back piece to be than the front? I think in mine, I added about 2 inches. So what you do is you multiply your height, how much extra fabric you want in the back, by your rows per inch. So 2 inches times 6, which is your rows per inch, equals 12. So we want 12 short rows in total, and that's rows in total. So not 12 pairs, we want 6 pairs. So on every side, so on each side where we have our short rows, we have 6, right? Does that make sense? So 12 rows total, 6 short rows on each side. The next thing, and the last thing we want to do, is decide where you want those short rows to start and stop, and count how many stitches total you have. So, all right, let's take another look at this here, and I'll show you exactly what I did. Essentially, with a short row, what you're doing is you're adding a wedge of fabric. And so my wedge is long and it's kind of straight at the back, and then it just quickly goes like that at the ends. And you can see that the bottom, the back at the bottom, is nice and straight. The front, let's try and get these sleeves out of the way for you. So this is the very, very front. So this front is also straight up until about here. So this is where my curve starts, right about here. And I actually stopped it right at the edge of my side. So the back is completely straight. It doesn't have any curve. The only curve is right about here. So this is where all my short rows are on either side. So I just count up how many stitches this is. What I would do, if you want the same look that I got, is I would put a marker on each of your side seams. You might already have them there depending on what your pattern says, but on each side put a stitch marker. And then on the front of your sweater, wherever you want, kind of hold this up to me, wherever you want your curve to stop and start, see how this part is a little bit flat? So I would put my stitch markers here, here, and then here and here, one on either side. So then I know that all my short rows are happening right here and right here. So I just count those stitches up total. I don't worry about what's here, and I don't worry what's at the back at all, because that's not having any shaping. It's just here and here. So we'll say there's 30 on this side and 30 on this side. So that is 60. So I have 60 stitches total to work over. And I know that I need 12 short rows total. So I'm going to divide my stitches by how many short rows I need. 60 divided by 12 is 5. So what that means, that number, is how many stitches are in each little, I think of them as wedges almost. So how many stitches are in between your short rows, right? So if you were to count in between every, or how many sections, so there's 5 stitches in each section. So that would mean there would be 4 stitches and then your short row. Okay, so if I was to knit this, now that I have all my numbers, how I would actually go about knitting this is, say I was starting at the front. This is my beginning of round. So I would actually work, which way am I knitting? This is my beginning of round. I would be working the back all the way to my side marker, and then I would work it past that marker to the other side of my sweater, to this side, all the way to that marker here, do my short row, and turn back around. So you can do a shadow wrap, you can do a German short row, whatever one you want to do. I would turn back around, go past that side marker, along the back again, all the way back to now this side again. And then we would hit our side marker and we would go up to wherever this short row marker is here, one stitch before that, do our short row and go back. And then when we go back again to the other side, work across the back again, knit across the back, and then what we're going to do is we're going to work to just 5 stitches before that last short row that you did. So you can even see, because this yarn is slightly variegated, you can see where these rows end. They just kind of like, this stripe keeps going, but they end here. So you want to work to 5 stitches before, or whatever your number is. Your number might be different than my number, and that's totally fine. To however many stitches before that last short row that you just worked, and then you're going to turn back around and purl across to the other side. And you're just going to keep doing that back and forth as many times as you need. So for me, with my calculations, I know I needed 12 short rows, so I do that 12 times. The back and the forth, back and the forth, 12 times. So I'll have 6 short rows on this side. I'll have 6 of the wraps or German short rows or whatever method I used. I'll have 6 on this side, and I'll have 6 on this side. And this back piece will be 2 inches longer. So that is how you can turn a basic raglan sweater pattern, how you can turn it into this, and some of the modifications that you can make. And again, I know that if you want exactly this sweater, that's wonderful. Just do everything that I just told you. But also feel free to change things as you need to. If you don't like a 1x1 folded hem, don't do it. If you love a 1x1 folded hem and you want to do it on the bottom instead of this broken rib, do it. If you don't want to do A-line shaping because you liked crop sweaters and instead you want to, instead of coming out at the waist, you want to come in at the waist, you can do that too. Instead of doing increases, you do the same math, you just do decreases. If you want to do a different stitch pattern here, you can absolutely do that. There are just so many possibilities when it comes to customizing sweaters, and I did have some people asking about this pattern, and I don't see it being published anytime soon. So I hope in the meantime this is something you can use to make your own beige sweater. And if you are looking for more information on how you can modify or adjust your own sweater patterns, I do have an online course all about this. It's called Altering Sweater Patterns, and it takes you through all sorts of different ways you can modify sweater patterns to fit you. Most of the class is about fit, so we talk a lot about gauge and what to do if your pattern or if your gauge swatch doesn't match the patterns, how you can use that information to make the right size. We talk about how to choose a size. We go through the basics of like measuring your body and ease and those kinds of things. I also go in depth into how to make adjustments to the body and to the sleeves using a little bit of what we just talked about here, and then also how to do short rows. So if you want more information about short rows, how they work, I draw you drawings. I take you through where they can be used and why, kind of in different ways. We talk about short rows at the neck, at the bust, and at the hems. And then we also talk about how you can combine two different sizes of a pattern depending on the construction, depending on whether it's top down, bottom up, how you can combine two sizes together to make one pattern. So there is a lot of information there. I will put a link to it down below. There's also a little coupon code there for you if you would like. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you get a lot out of it, and I hope to see you soon. Okay, bye.